Okay, so hello to everybody and welcome Isabella. Is it Isabella Rose Taylor or Isabella Taylor or Isabella? How would you like to be called?
Isabella is fine.
Isabella is fine is a good way to call it. Okay, and we have Isabella's dad. We have Caesar on Isabella's right. And we have a couple of guests at the moment. We have Mr. McNulty and we have Mr. K in different parts of the USA. And I know we've got another group. They're going to join us now. They are a sewing group, so they're going to have some interesting and technical questions for Isabella. I'm going to try and describe you, but I might get this wrong. So you need to correct any of the inaccuracies. Your dad has helped me along the way, but you are 13 years old.
Yes.
You are a fashion designer. You are also an artist. And you are in second year college. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, that is very unusual to find a 13-year-old that has all of that in one package. And don't let me forget that you are a fashion model because you model all of your own clothing as well.
Yeah.
So that's many hats that you wear. How did it all start? I mean, first of all, when did your dad decide, or your mom and dad, when did they decide that maybe staying at school was not the right decision? Maybe you needed to move on to greater things in university. How did that all happen?
Well, I've been painting since I was very young. I mean, I started out finger painting like every toddler, but it was really something that I loved and I wanted to spend all my time doing. But I was going to school, and I went until about first or second grade, and at the time I was taking my art very seriously, and I was really passionate about it. My parents were also interested in other forms of education and some aspects of homeschooling and online school, and they really wanted to travel, so I got taken out of school, and I loved it because I had a lot more time to focus on my art and really explore that world, and it's something that I still do, and I'm so happy that I did it. So basically for my education, I went through middle school very quickly. I went to some online schools. I did some classes at different middle schools, things like that. So I got all my credits from middle school very quickly, and then went to 2 private high schools. And when I was in middle school, that's really when I discovered fashion, and I went to a sewing camp for the summer and actually started sewing because of my art. I was doing mixed media. I wanted to learn how to incorporate fabric and stitching and things like that. And little did I know that I would actually fall in love with fashion and that new sort of little place to explore for me. So I really think that the two are very connected, but I think because of my education, I'm able to pursue these things more because of the time I had off. And it really just gave me a lot of time to figure out what I wanted to do.
I mean, that is a very unique situation to have that kind of freedom in terms of exploring what you're good at. Most parents, when their child says to the parents, I want to be a fireman, or I want to be a trapeze artist in the circus, the parents will say, well, that sounds lovely, but maybe you should finish off school and then we'll see where it leads. I mean, your parents said, well, you pretty much like art. Let's see what we can do with it, and let's explore it and enhance as much as possible. I mean, that's pretty much what they did, and they gave you that freedom.
Yeah, they definitely did. I think when they saw how serious I was about both art and fashion, they really wanted to let me pursue it, and I'm so grateful to them because I would not be where I am without that support.
Wow. Okay, and then you said you went to, was it a summer camp for sewing?
Yeah, it was a sewing class over the summer camp, and I actually scheduled, it was just a few weeks, but I actually signed up, so I spent the whole summer going to that sewing camp, and I really learned a lot. I think having that basic knowledge of sewing is really helpful for designing for me, and I'm really glad that I have that.
Okay, but now obviously there's a correlation between the art and the sewing in terms of design and pattern and that type of thing. Did you see the connection between the two straight away? Because your art sometimes can be a bit abstract.
Definitely. I mean, I would always be sewing something, playing around with that, and it would be really similar to what I was doing in my art. And now that I am focused more on the design side of things, my favorite part of designing is definitely textiles and silhouettes and things like that. So I
Hmm.
design all my own textiles, and that's where my art and fashion, I think, really intersect, because I can take bits of my painting and make that into a pattern or draw a pattern and things like that. So it really makes them fuse together.
Okay. And I mean, you haven't been doing this for long. I mean, you literally, if you're only 13 years old, how long have you been doing it for?
I've been doing fashion. I started sewing about 5 years ago, and then I've been painting since I was very young, probably around three-ish.
But now, when did you actually get your first foot in the door for the fashion industry?
I would say, I mean, the first year I did it, I was just sewing clothes for myself and for friends and things like that. I mean, it was a very gradual process for sure. I would just always get stopped and people would ask me where I got something or things like that. So I realized that people actually liked what I was making and there was a little bit of a demand for it. So I started a website and would sell a couple pieces here and there, do trunk shows, and then as demand grew, basically my brand grew. It didn't all of a sudden just happen. It's been a very gradual process.
Wow.
She's
But now,
done
if
5 runway
you,
shows.
yeah, what was that, Caesar?
She's done 5 runway shows already, and the last one was New York Fashion Week in September.
So that's a big one.
Yeah.
We're still waiting. We're going to have to get you to do the Cape Town Fashion Week, but that'll come in time. What I find interesting is that, if you are selling little bits and to your friends, and then the brand is growing, how much of a role did social media play in that process?
I think a huge role. I mean, from when I started, my parents actually started me a Facebook page since I was too young to have other social medias, but I think that that was just a great place to get awareness, because I think social media is so important, especially since I'm selling to my peers. So having an Instagram and Twitter and Facebook presence and even Snapchat and stuff like that, I think is so important so people can stay updated on what I'm doing and learn about the events that are coming up and things like that. And it's a great way to expand your audience for sure.
I can imagine. I can imagine. And I mean, how much of a role does social media play now? Because you're obviously modeling your own clothing, and you're obviously using your Twitter, your Instagram, your Facebook, and that type of thing. How much of a role does it play now, and in your growth plans in the future?
I think it's just a huge part of my business, especially since it is for juniors and teenagers, and it's just a part of most teenagers' life is, all about social media. So I think having that aspect, and for me, always having a balance between keeping it so it's somewhat personal, so people get a sense of me as sort of the person designing these collections, and then also about my brand and like things like New York Fashion Week. I also have a YouTube channel, so I did like a New York Fashion Week vlog and things like that, so people get to see behind the scenes and also just some fun videos of things I like to do in my spare time.
What kind of things do you like to do in your spare time?
I really like to bake, actually. My sister's a pastry chef, so she teaches me a lot of stuff, and now that I'm on Christmas break, I plan on making a lot of Christmas cookies and things like that.
Okay, so you're obviously into a lot of the hands-on types of things, but you
Yeah.
obviously also have an awareness of the digital aspects as well.
Mhm.
But why would a fashion industry take a 13-year-old seriously?
I think it's been difficult. I think some people just throughout my journey have definitely not taken me seriously or thought it was a joke or that my parents were doing all of this. But I think upon learning a little bit more about me and how much effort and work I put into every collection, and I'm working on my fashion every day, so I think that they do take me seriously, especially when I accomplish things like New York Fashion Week, which every designer dreams of having a show at. So I'm really grateful for the people that support me, besides my parents, and that believe in me.
Okay, but now you're up against some very big names. When you go to Fashion Week, I mean, you've got some highly developed or established names that you need to then try and showcase your work against theirs. How does that, I mean, is that intimidating? How does it make you feel?
I think it's definitely a little intimidating going to New York Fashion Week, just because it's such a big scale and everything's just, I mean, it's very crazy. It was very surreal, and I was very excited and thankful to Dell for giving me this opportunity and being a partner with me for my show. And as far as like having a show around the time where all these huge designers are showing, I think, of course, it's overwhelming to try to be, do something on par or, well, not on par, but even just similar or, close to what they're doing just to feel like you belong there. But at the same time, I think just staying true to who I was and what I wanted to do for that runway show, because if I was going to have a New York Fashion Week, I really wanted it to be the show that I really wanted, and I was very happy with it, and a lot of people enjoyed it, so I was really...
But now, you do realize you've got a small problem. Since you model all your own clothing, were you the only model walking up and down the runway?
No, actually, I normally don't do the runway modeling, per se. I've done it once or twice in the past, but I mostly do for pictures and things like that, which can be used for social media, or even when I was selling at I am selling at Nordstrom's this fall. I had actually my pictures up on the website, and they picked them because they found that girls liked seeing how I would style the clothes and just the whole look that I put with the collection. So I think that's really great, and that's why I've continued to do it, is because people seem to like seeing me in the clothes and how I style, like the hair and the makeup and just the styling of the outfits.
Okay, so now one of the topics that obviously I did mention to you earlier that is quite close to my heart is the fashion industry and the modeling industry. There's a lot of, how could I put it? I wouldn't say, okay, I would say that you could call it negative publicity in the sense that every now and again they have some interesting criticism of the modeling industry, where many of the models that are used to do the runways in New York Fashion Week and that type of thing are often considered to be very underweight, and perhaps send the message to young girls that this is what beauty is supposed to look like. What is your comment on that?
I think it's very unfortunate, because I think a lot of girls see that, and there are issues like eating disorders and things that come from an image of people trying to look a certain way. But I think it's just so important that people know that they just need to be healthy and what healthy is for them. I mean, there's a balance between being overweight and underweight and everything. So I think it's just finding a happy medium and just knowing that you are beautiful, and you shouldn't try to change yourself to look like someone else who probably isn't even confident in themselves, So I think that it's just important to just be happy with yourself, and I know that's a lot easier said than done, but I think just working towards that. And there are a lot of campaigns and things that are focusing on it, like the Dove campaign that's happening right now. I think it's just really important to have those things in our society to sort of show girls.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that it's important that as a fashion designer that you are also a role model yourself, in the sense that when you go and speak to students at schools, I don't know if you do school visits, but if you do speak to the students at schools, that you do enforce that particular point, that it's about healthy balance, and that self-esteem is something that you shouldn't really look at what you see on the runways and perceive that to be the reality, because that's a small minority of people in the world that actually look like that.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm asked the question, I just think the most important thing is to be healthy and have a balance, and I definitely always tell people that when they ask me. I have done some school visit sort of things, and it's been really fun to share my story. And I mean, I just always say when people ask me, I mean, there's a lot of negativity around that subject and all of that, but I think that there is a lot of positive things going out there, like the Dove campaign, and there's so many campaigns and things that I think are so important, because they are improving, I think, how girls feel about themselves.
Of course. And in terms of your range, how would you describe your range of clothing?
It is for juniors, so teenagers to early college, a little bit of the preteen area. So it's a pretty broad spectrum, I would say. And as far as the style, it's always very street. It's ready to wear, so casual things that you could wear on an everyday basis. I always keep it a little bit on the edgier side, a little bit of a grunge influence, but still with some girly, feminine aspects incorporated.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, these are my dogs running in the back.
That's okay. Your dog wants to be in the interview. You have people who photobomb everything. And of course, it's not just the fashion that you're into. You're also quite talented with your art. And I noticed right in the background, just behind you, is a magnificent portrait that you've painted. Is that a self-portrait?
Yeah, it's a self-portrait I did when I was around 9, I would say, 9 or 10, and that was actually one of the first portraits that I ever did. So my parents like to have it hanging up, especially in my art room. There's a thing from every age, so I can sort of see that I've made progress over the years.
Wow. I mean, 9 years old, that's pretty talented for 9 years old. So obviously, when you started painting like that at 9 years old, your parents, I mean, you don't have to be an art expert to know that there's definitely talent there. So now, you get to combine your art and your fashion together.
Yeah, this portrait I did when I was around 9,
let me just
I would say, 9
turn
or
that
10,
on mute.
and that was actually one of the first portraits that I ever did. So
Cheryl, are you able to mute? There we go. Okay, sometimes what happens is people play the YouTube video in the background, and then it's just a slight delay, but it comes through.
Okay.
Okay, so, but now, I mean, if you're not at school and you are at college, many of your peers, your friends, your age are obviously not spending the time with you during the day, but obviously after school or on weekends and stuff. How do they relate to all of this?
I think all my friends are really supportive, and a lot of them have their own interests, whether that be dancing or acting or modeling or whatever it may be. They're all busy with what interests them and what they're passionate about, and I'm supportive of what they're doing, and they're supportive of what I'm doing. So I feel very fortunate to have such great friends, and I try to surround myself with positive people. And I basically see it as everyone's busy during the week, I find, whether that be with school and extracurricular activities. So everyone's pretty packed during the week. So even if I was going to traditional school, it would be pretty busy. So on the weekends, I think all my friends can sort of just get together and just have fun.
Okay. Caesar, you are Isabella's dad. What's it like living in a house where fashion is important? Does it mean you have to up your game? You obviously can't walk around in your underwear and have a t-shirt with holes in it. I mean, there's certain standards that you have to keep in the house.
Well, not so much in the house, but I'm a doctor, so I live in scrubs and t-shirts. Work. I don't wear suits or anything, but when she has events, she's 13, so we have to go with her. Then I do dress up every now and then.
But that's a very interesting point that you raised. I mean, being 13, when we were interviewing DJ L a couple of months ago, who's out in the Houston area, and she goes to all these big events, and because she's a DJ, she's up in clubs at night until very late. Surely in the fashion industry as well, you've got a lot of possible negative influences around you, whether it be alcohol or perhaps people that would like to connect with you. Do you find that obviously it's useful to have your parents there? I mean, are there any times where you don't want your parents there because you want to project that you are much older than you really are?
I would say, I mean, it's nice to have my parents there because most of these events, I mean, it's very exciting for me, so it's nice to be surrounded by my parents who are so helpful and so supportive of me. And as far as, like, the, I guess, possible negative influences around me, I wouldn't say that I have any more than the average teenager because, I mean, I go to concerts and things like that, like most kids my age, and of course there's some negative influences because that's just the world and it's sort of around you, but I don't think I really let it affect me, and I mean, you can't really get away from that, and I think that I don't have any more than the average person.
Now I see your mom, I think she's hiding away behind one of the rails
mom
there.
is not here. She was actually not home. I just got here. Hello.
Hi, Mom. So it's Sherry, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So we have Sherry and Caesar with Isabella, and you now live in a house that is basically a Nordstrom department, and apparently there's a kitchen attached, and maybe a bathroom and a bedroom and an art gallery as well. How do you, and what's your dog's name?
This is Star. This is one of the photo bombers you saw earlier.
There we go. We like it when dogs photobomb the videos. So how as parents, how do you deal with all of this? Because, I mean, if you take a little mathematical graph and you say she started at 9, had some great paintings, now she's 13, which is only 4 years later, she's a fashion designer, and she is got her own clothing line in Nordstrom's. What's going to happen in the next 3 or 4 years? I mean, How do you cope with all that growth?
Wow. Yeah, I don't know if we've really stopped to think about it. We just keep moving forward. It's been a little surreal, I guess, and exciting. It's always exciting to see your kids' dreams come, to fruition. So we just try and support her with whatever we can, whatever we can do. It's really not our field, so one day.
That is interesting. I mean, you're both in the medical field, is that correct?
Yes.
So do you think that maybe there might be some designer gowns and scrubs that could be coming in the future?
That would be awesome. Fix them scrubs, Bella.
I mean, gloves with little diamante and gems on them.
Yeah.
No?
That would be funny.
That would be awesome. So now we have quite a few guests that have joined us, and I know a few of them are watching them live on YouTube. But I'm going to switch over to Cheryl. Is it Cheryl? I don't think it is Cheryl. I think it's Elizabeth. But she's got her group of students who are actually doing a sewing class. And I'm sure that they've got some questions I'd like to ask you as well. So do any of your students want to ask a question?
Anybody want to ask?
Hi.
They do have a question. They're wondering about like the expenses and like how much money do you need to get a collection started, and how do you keep it going?
That is a very good question.
Yeah.
I mean, it is expensive definitely as far as fabric goes and all the things you have to think about, especially as things get to a bigger scale with production and grading and all of that. But I think that it depends really on the size of the collection and the quantities. But I mean, it definitely is an initial investment with fabric and whatever notions are needed in the beginning.
I have a question personally.
Yes.
What do you see for yourself when you're no longer a teen, and do you think you'll go back and get any training for more advanced skill set to keep your I don't know, just so that when you start doing other types of garments, you might have.
I'm still learning, and I plan to keep doing that. Right now I'm working on a fine arts degree, but when I'm finished that, I definitely would like to go to a fashion school and learn more, basically.
Well, you've taken some college fashion classes.
I have taken some college fashion classes, but I think working towards a degree and taking more classes is something I definitely want to do in the future.
Okay, thanks.
I mean, what I want to know is, obviously, if you go to all these fashion weeks, do you have a lot of your role models that you look up to at the fashion week showing with you? Do you find that these are great learning experiences for you?
Definitely. I mean, I've met a lot of designers like Cesar Galindo and Charlotte Ronson and Norma Kamali, so I feel so grateful to have met these people, and they've given me some great advice. Like Cesar Galindo, I got to follow him around and sort of see his process for a day, and then I actually got invited to his show and got to see the completed collection with all the fabric and everything that he picked. So, I mean, I think that I learned so much from just a hands-on experience. Even just being at my factory and just being there for a day, I learned so much.
Okay.
And I can add something to that. As her dad, in reference to that question, is that it's very important to me and to Sherry, Mom, that the learning keeps happening, that there's no stagnation. So she is going to college, but as far as the fashion, in a way, a lot of what she's learning right now is how to handle a business on the bigger sense of the world. And when I see her going through the factories where her stuff is manufactured, she talks to the seamstresses and the pattern makers, and producing something on a big scale that is going to retail is such a big, different game. And I think she's picking a lot of that up just by being exposed to that.
Well, definitely.
Yeah,
hands-on learning. Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, so putting a collection together when she did like the fashion weeks, the runway shows. That's where her artistry comes through, I think.
Yeah, I just think the business side is also very important. And as it becomes a bigger business, I'm definitely learning more about it and getting more involved.
Well, I mean, I know of cases where doctors, they studied for 6 or 7 years here in South Africa, and they go into a private practice with 3 or 4 doctors, and they lose money because they don't know how to run a business. They know how to sew up a wound, but they can't run a business. And I think that, if you look at the statistics, they say that for every 100 businesses that start up in the first year, 95 will fail. So, I mean, you might have a brilliant idea, and you might be very talented, but if you don't manage the business aspect, you could actually end up losing your dream, not because it wasn't a good one, but because the one aspect failed. And that's why you have your parents who are guiding you, obviously, but at some point you're going to have to, you've probably got a company, and you're going to have to manage that and maybe get a board of directors and make decisions, because, just looking at the growth that you're having at the moment, if you're 13 and you're at New York Fashion Week, where are you going to be when you're 15?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite, look, it's fantastic. But now, you obviously are trying on all your own clothing. Where do you get your inspiration from? Because one of the things that I like to do is I look at the creativity. Now, being an artist, obviously you see art in everything that you do, but when it comes to designs and actual clothing, to translate an idea into a garment, where do you get your creativity and your ideas from?
I get it from basically all around me. From travels, from my paintings themselves as they do become my textiles, so that definitely is an aspect I bring in when I'm starting to design. Also, I make a mood board for every collection, so I make a couple and pick one basically of just the vibe and the color scheme and some silhouettes and things like that I want to incorporate. So I think having that to then build around is really key for me, because it just gives me a direction.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever get creator's block?
Definitely. Probably every season, but I think it's just looking is basically the best way to get past it, and just trying things, just sketching 100 bad things to find one decent thing that I like, then to just jump off of, or just to look at Pinterest and Tumblr and maybe find an image with the perfect color scheme that I want to incorporate into my collection. Things like that, just to get past it, because once I get started, I can normally keep going for a while there.
Are you a perfectionist, and are you very hard on yourself? In other words, you go through 1,000 patterns and only pick one because it only meets your standards, but everyone else goes, but what about these other 500? These were wonderful.
Yes, definitely. Both of you totally agree. I can design a complete collection and be happy with it, but then the next day realize that I'm not completely happy with it and redo a collection. Probably 10 times. That probably happens every season, because I want to make sure it's something that I'm really happy with, and it takes a while for me to get there, and sometimes I am still tweaking things to the last moment.
And now, obviously, with your mom, when you guys go out together, Mom, do you feel any pressure that you have to dress in a certain way, that you've got to kind of keep the look going? I know that Dad doesn't mind. Dad just puts on a tie and he's okay. But for you, does she pick out your outfits, or do you go together?
She helps me. I'll try stuff on, and she'll give me the thumbs up or thumbs down. So she helps me that way, but she's better at it than I am. So
you rather let people take on their talents, and you let them use their talents. I like that.
Yeah.
So now, I know we've got a couple of other guests. Kathy is in Austria. Kathy, do you want to ask any questions?
Looks like she's muted.
But she'll unmute herself if she wants to ask. Maybe she'll type a question if she wants to ask a question. What I wanted to know now is, what are your plans for the next, and I'm not even going to ask you for the next 5 years, because for you, things are changing every couple of months. What are your plans for the next 6 months?
I don't really know where I'll be in 6 months. I think just continuing to work on the next collection. It's sort of always a cycle of collections and seasons. But my sort of long-term goals would definitely be to expand into accessories. I'd love to do that just to be able to complete my looks, whether that would be jewelry, handbags, any sort of accessories. I just really would love to have a head-to-toe look, as well as expand into a global brand eventually. That would be one of my big dreams, is to go global. And another one is definitely to be a mentor to other girls and help just people with the same interests that I have, whether that is art or fashion.
Okay, so now we're going to discuss a couple of ideas that I've been thinking about as you mentioned it. Okay, so number one, when it comes to creative block, do you know about Leonardo da Vinci's idea box?
No, I don't, actually.
Good, so now I can share something with you.
Yeah.
Leonardo da Vinci, as you know, was a very well-known painter and a great scientist too. And he often got to a situation where he had to paint a face, but he didn't have an idea of what that face should look like. So what he did was he made a set of columns. The first column would be nose, the next column would be mouth, the next column would be chin, head, forehead, hairstyle, whatever the columns were, and he gave different types of noses, different types of chins, and what he would do is he would randomly select one from each column. So it would be a stub nose, a protruding chin, it might be a large forehead, spiky hair, and then from that he was able to create his own idea of a face. So what you might have is a range of colors, a range of fabrics, a range of designs, a whole bunch of things, and then you basically just either roll the die or you randomly select one from each column, and boom, an idea might come to you that you never suspected or thought of before. So that's just an idea for you to try out. Yeah. And then the other idea is that you want to become a role model for young women. And I think that for me is incredibly important. I was very lucky to have the World Speed Cube Champions down in Cape Town for this past week. Mats and Felix, they were the ones who can solve the Rubik's Cube under 6 seconds, which is incredibly fast. And we took them around to all the schools, and for me, watching them perform on stage was one thing, but watching them go up to those kids afterwards and connect with them and talk with them and say, you know, you can do it too. And then when we had the competition on Sunday, we had 1 or 2 children who were quite upset that they were taking more than, let's say, 8 or 9 minutes to solve the cube. And they would go over to the person, I mean, they're only 18 years old, so they would go over to this young person of 8 years old and say, you know, when I first started, I took more than 10 minutes too. And I've managed to now get it to 6 seconds. There is so much potential. Please don't give up. And I think that someone like you, who's only 13 and is already at the top of your game, and you're only just beginning, so we don't even know where the top is going to be. I mean, you might actually take the game to a level that all the other designers want to follow, which is quite exciting. I would love to see that you have a component where young women can do internships and come and learn about the industry through a young person like you, and get the right kind of guidance, because I'm very passionate about young women who send out the right message about appropriateness and clothing and fashion, and I think that you are the epitome of the type of person that should be guiding young people.
Thank you so much. That's so nice.
But that's the truth, isn't it? I mean, you could so easily go and set up a store, have a team of people, and become an untouchable, that no one can get to you. The fact that you're going to schools and you're telling young people that they have potential, it might be just that one person who is an Isabella Rose Taylor sitting in that audience who goes, that's what I want to become, and they could become the next you. So it's so important that you give these kids encouragement and show them that, you know, yes, I am an exceptional artist. Yes, I happen to be beautiful, and my clothes, I model my own clothes, and I'm great in the kitchen as well, and I can paint and I can design. But you know what? I'm still a young person like you. I also have my own hobbies and interests, and I'm just very lucky that obviously my parents supported me, but anyone else, if they pursue it with as much passion, could probably get to the same point as you, or maybe not the same point, but move in the right direction, which I think is so important. So now, is there any advice that you'd like to give young people? I mean, you are a young person, so what kind of advice would you give for yourself to other people like you?
Yes.
Is the kind of industry you want to get into? I mean, is it cutthroat? Is it as if you ever watch the documentaries of what goes on behind the scenes, and I mean, is it as bad as they say, or is it really a wonderful industry to be in?
I mean, I think the fashion industry is a mix of both. I mean, there's some amazing aspects. It is what I love to do, but it also can be difficult, like any industry. My advice I would give is something more general than just fashion for whatever your dreams may be, this is a saying I used to say when I was younger, and it's blood, sweat, and glitter, because to achieve your dreams, no matter what they are, it is going to take a lot of blood, so passion about what you're doing, sweat, a lot of hard work, because it isn't just going to be the parts of it that you want to do. It also is going to be a lot of hard work and learning about the business side of things, like for me. And glitter, it has to have creativity and imagination to really give the idea to accomplish those dreams.
I think that is awesome. Which talk shows have you been on?
I've been on Katie Couric and Steve Harvey, the Today Show and things like that.
And you haven't been on Ellen yet?
Just online.
Just online, yeah. I'd love to be on her show one day. I love Ellen.
Okay, well, we must chat. And then of course, who are your musical influences? Because when you are designing, does music ever play a feature in your ideas?
Definitely. Music is a big part of my life, and I'm very inspired by whatever music I'm listening to. Some of my favorites are Arctic Monkeys, and I like kind of more indie alternative music. So I
noticed because you've got a bit of a grunge feel to your clothing, so I didn't expect you to have like mainstream pop artists.
One band I'm loving is Faded Paper Figures. I also love G-Eazy and Hoodie Allen. Those are probably like my top 4 at the moment.
So when you do a show, would you consider having those types of bands playing music or their soundtracks for your shows?
I would love that. I always pick the music for my shows, but actually having like a live band or something would be really incredible.
You see, this is what you've got to do. You've got to think outside of the box and have something that no one else has done. Then they're going to be copying you. Now, I know Kathy is in Austria. She's got a whole bunch of high school students. They're not there now, but she says that thank you for inviting. Can't wait to tell my students about you. You sure will have a fan club in southern Austria, and you are my idol. Because, you know, for her, teaching high school girls, it's so important to have the right type of role models. One important question I have to ask you is, you know, from a financial point of view, we understand that it takes a lot of financial investment to get an idea off the ground and to then take it to the next level. You've been very fortunate because Nordstrom's, is it all the Nordstroms or just some of the Nordstroms?
It's 10 Nordstroms and online.
10 Nordstroms and online. That is a large market. They've actually taken on your latest fashion line. Is that correct?
Yes, I've been selling to them. It's been really great. I'm so happy that they like the collection.
Now, one thing I wanted to find out from you is, do you determine the fashion that goes into their stores, or do they guide you as to what they would like from you? Do you feel that at some point you're going to get to a place where maybe someone oversteps their boundary and says, listen, you're only 13 years old, we're in the fashion industry, this is what you need to do? Or you're going to stick to your guns and say, this is what I'm doing, you either like it or you walk away?
I mean, I always stick to my guns as far as the collection goes. I present them an entire collection, and it's up to them what pieces they would like to carry in their store, of course. So, I mean, sometimes they'll request, like, wow, we really love the graphic tees. Could you do a couple more for us to look at? And I'm very open to giving them more things to look at and all of that. But at the end of the day, I do stick to my guns and design a collection that I would wear and I'm happy with.
Awesome, awesome. Now, your dad was very proudly showing me a little bit of your artwork in the gallery just around the corner. Are we allowed to see some of that beautiful artwork?
Definitely.
So we're going to
Not a
little bit of a tour?
It's a lot of works in progress.
That's okay. You know, for us, we love to see your talent. So that's the most important. And obviously, we'll see that. Oh, you're going to have to cover the rails so we don't see next season's work and copy it.
So this is my art studio. It's kind of messy right now, but I have all my paints and I work mostly in oils, so it gets a little stinky down here. So it's great to have ventilation. Here's something I'm working on right now. Just playing around with that. Have some other little things I'm working on in the back. I have quite a few paintings that I'm working on at one time.
And then, I mean, your whole house is a clothing rail as well.
Basically, I'm slowly taking over the house.
Okay. So are your parents planning to move out at some point so that you can complete the process?
Definitely, I think having an office at some point would be great, but at this point, I mean, I think they're okay with me taking over. I don't know, that's what they say at least, so.
That is so cool. So now, you're a talented artist. You started at a very young age, painting and drawing and that type of thing. You moved on to fashion design. You mentioned your accessories is something that you'd like to obviously explore a little bit further. And I was just chatting to your dad and saying, you know, in science, the latest developments at the moment with 3D printers will enable you to bring out prototypes so that you can go to a company and say, listen, this is the kind of beading necklace I want. Can you make that? I mean, have you explored 3D printers at all?
Definitely. I mean, I just think that all this new technology and science going behind the fashion industry, I think it's just, sorry about that, I think it's so great. It's opening new doors, and I think allowing designers to be more creative because there's just endless possibilities now.
And then, I mean, when it comes to designing of your clothing, do you have software that you use, or is it all done by hand?
I definitely use software like Illustrator and Photoshop to help with all of that, as well as there's some new technologies I'm looking to get, which I'm very excited about, which will allow me to sort of have a 3D rendering of the things I'm designing.
Now that would be cool. In fact, there's a wonderful video online you can watch called A Day Made of Glass, where they show how if you put circuitry into glass, you can get the glass to do amazing things. And one of the scenes is a mirror in the bedroom. And when you go up to the mirror, you can actually stand there and it will show you images of what you've got in your wardrobe. But because your face will then be superimposed on the outfit, you can decide if that's what you want to wear for the day. And you can obviously move through all the items in the wardrobe and pick what you want. And then when you open the wardrobe, it just helps with the process of selecting clothing. Do you think that you might have the Isabella Rose Taylor app that will allow people to put themselves into your fashion for that particular season and decide if that's what they want to wear?
I would love to. I mean, technology is something I'm very interested in. I think that it's just really important aspect of the fashion industry, and that industry is like slowly getting more and more infused with all these new technologies. So I would love to incorporate whatever I can into my business.
Well, I mean, you are bringing out a fashion range every season, but now we have to admit that seasons in the Northern Hemisphere are opposite to seasons in the Southern Hemisphere. So surely you get a chance to do a European collection, and then a Southern Hemisphere, maybe Australian or South African collection, and then, I mean, then you're busy the whole year.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to expand to more lines and collections. I think that'd be a lot of fun. More work, but it's what I love.
That is amazing that you get to combine that. Now, Cheryl wanted to know, how much time do you spend on your craft daily and weekly?
Honestly, it varies quite a bit. It'd be hard to give you a specific number. I mean, some weeks, like preceding a runway show, I'm spending the majority of my time focusing on that, or some weeks I'll focus more on art, or somewhere in the middle. So it's always different, honestly. I mean, some days I spend the entire day working on fashion, and others I have to do schoolwork and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And when do you finish off your university studies?
Right now I'm just sort of taking my time. Really, I'm taking some classes that don't necessarily go towards my degree, things I'm just interested in, like fashion, which is not required for a fine arts degree. But, I mean, I have time, so I'm just sort of taking classes that interest me.
I think that's the best way to do it. Like your father said, you never stop learning. I mean, even now, when you know, I only teach a couple of thousand students a week, but you know, when I'm teaching, I'm still learning throughout the process. And as a teacher, you never stop learning. Where would you like to see yourself next year?
Next year, I think continuing to just growing as far as designing goes and getting more innovative on that aspect, as well as, I mean, maybe expanding into more stores and having more retailers. That would be a really big dream for me for next year, some goals.
And how do you think you're going to achieve that?
I
Because
think,
if you have a goal, what steps are you taking to achieve that?
I mean, I would say I'm taking them right now. I think designing the collections like every season, of course, and then, I mean, showing them to more buyers and just putting myself out there more is really what will result in me getting to my goals, I think.
Do you go out yourself and show to the buyers, or do you have reps
Yes,
that go out for you?
I do go out myself.
But now you don't drive, so does that make it complicated?
Yeah, my parents get the pleasure of driving me.
Okay, well that seems reasonable. At least they get to spend time with you. That's pretty cool. And do you travel a lot?
I do, especially to LA because that's where my factory and production is. So I go to LA pretty frequently, as well as New York, but more LA right now.
Okay. I'm just trying to think if we can see if there were any questions that came on the internet. Let's see. Lizzie wants to know how old you are. So Lizzie, she's 13 years old. Cheryl wants to know, do you ever plan to work overseas?
I would love to expand overseas. I mean, I honestly don't know. Maybe, I mean, I'd love to explore the things and have those experiences for sure.
If I had to look at your collection, your junior collection, would I see it as an American collection, or would I see it as a European collection? I mean, is there like an identifying flavor to your clothing, or do you think it's just universal for anyone?
I think it would probably lean towards more of an American style, just since that's what I'm immersed in right now. I do, of course, look at fashion overseas and will sometimes be influenced by certain aspects of that, but I would say right now it is sort of ready to wear, so it is a little bit more American.
Okay. One thing that always confused me is, you know, you watch all these fashion shows and they come out with these crazy outfits that there's no ways anyone would ever wear anything like that unless, you know, it was on a runway. But you obviously create things that literally you can walk off the runway in that outfit and it would be fantastic.
Yes, I do, and I do create some runway pieces, and nothing ever goes, I would say, too crazy. I always try to keep somewhat ready to wear, but I will create some more exciting jackets and things to layer with that are more runway pieces.
Okay, so now if you were going to give fashion advice to any young woman who is listening, what are the key no-nos that they should always remember?
I would say just knowing what is flattering, so never go tight on tight, baggy on baggy, always keep a balance in what you're wearing. That's a motto that, like, my mom taught me and, like, I've always sort of done, so just to keep it flattering. And I think it's also really fun just to experiment with styles, and even though you might look back and not like something that you were wearing, I think it's just fun to experiment and have fun with it, because at the end of the day, it is a fun thing.
Completely. I mean, some of us, unfortunately, we don't get a choice. It's always tight on tight. That's just the way it goes. But have you ever created any for anyone famous? And if you haven't, who would you like to design clothing for?
I have not designed anything for someone famous. I would like to in the future. I mean, I would love to have some celebrities that are in this demographic wear some of my clothes and just see them wearing it in sort of their everyday life. That would be really exciting for me.
So who would fit into that demographic? Could you name one or two? Because you never know. They might see this and go, hey, she wants to design for me.
I really like Zendaya Coleman's style. I follow her on Instagram, and I think it's very edgy and fun. So I think seeing her in one of my pieces would be really cool. And honestly, the list is pretty long, blanking right now, but I think just my style is combining a lot of different things. So I could see a lot of different people taking it a different way, whether that would be taking it more bohemian or extremely 90s grunge, so I could see it going quite a few different ways.
That is so cool. I mean, if it was me and I was trying to get a celebrity to endorse my brand, I would probably use a little bit of Photoshop and put their face in my outfits and Instagram it to them so they can get a sense of how great they could look wearing your clothing. Sometimes you have to be a little bit out of the box when it comes to promoting your stuff. But now, I mean, if you think about it from the media machine, you know, if you are on talk shows and you are on YouTube and you are on Facebook and Instagram and all these things, the more people that see you, the more you get noticed. The more you get noticed, the better the prospects. So, I mean, do you have like a media person that is going to help you to develop your media campaign, or is it all just you?
As far as social media, it's all just me. I manage all my own accounts, and I have had help a couple of times, but I found that really the best way to do it is just me tweeting and Instagram and all that, just so it stays authentic to who I am and the brand.
That is amazing. All right. So now I know that Cheryl says that she's so glad she has a 20-year-old who will definitely become a follower because she's very into fashion, and someone like me who is what we call, I have to think of the nice euphemism, fashionably inept. I think, obviously, listening to someone like you, I'm always inspired when young people are willing to share their passion, and I'm hoping that obviously the people that are watching this live on YouTube and the people who will get to watch it afterwards will get to see that you are the real thing. You're not just some person in an ivory tower hidden away. I mean, you really do live and breathe the idea of fashion and what it can do for people. In a nutshell, when you create an outfit, I know that you often create it for yourself in mind. How does it make you feel to see other people wearing your clothing?
So exciting. I mean, I remember the first time, like, my collection in Nordstrom's, I saw someone in a mall actually wearing one of my dresses, and it's just such an incredible experience just to think that they liked that dress and that they wanted to wear it and they felt confident in it. And it's just someone that I didn't know that was just going about their life, and I think that's just a really incredible moment.
That is very cool. So now you do your own makeup, you do your own fashion, you do your own tweeting and multimedia, you do your own design. Do you not think that maybe at some point you're going to have to start handing some of that stuff over to people to make your life a little bit easier? Because there are only so many hours in a day.
I think maybe there are things that I could eventually get help with, of course, but at the end of the day, I would always want to have complete creative control and make sure that it always stays authentic.
Well, that's very important, staying the way you are. Well, I would like to say thank you very much for making the time to speak with us. I think it's fantastic that at 13 years old you've accomplished all of that. We will certainly be watching your every move on Instagram and Facebook, and I will put all your social media connections on the YouTube page so that people can actually follow you and see what's going on. And hopefully, when you guys come down to Cape Town again, because I heard you were here a few years ago, when you come back down to Cape Town, we will connect with you guys, and maybe I can hook you up with a few people in the fashion industry on this side as well.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Love to meet up there.
Yes, yeah, I mean, we do a lot of work with some very interesting people. Some of the people that we do work with is NASA, and maybe NASA, the space uniforms need a little bit of a makeover. What do you reckon?
Sure.
A nice grunge look? I don't know.
Black.
Black is the new silver, or something like that. Okay, so thank you very much. I know you guys you've got to go out now, but we really appreciate that your dad Caesar and your mom Sherry could join in, and of course there's another photo bomber at the back there. I don't know who that is.
Oh, that's Brandy.
That's Brandy.
Brandy. Okay, thank you, Brandy. And the other dog was
Star.
Star. There we go. So we had the whole family join in today, and we had people from all over the world joining in as well. So we really are appreciative, and we wish you not the best of luck because you have so much skill. So we wish you the best of skill, and we hope that you are very successful. And then one day, I will be. Do you ever make anything for guys?
Not right now, but who knows?
Who knows? Okay, and dogs? Is there an Isabella Rose Taylor outfit for the winter for the dogs?
There's not, but maybe I need to work on that.
There we go. Okay. So thank you very much, and enjoy it, and we will catch up with you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.